Welcome listeners and viewers far and wide, from Walla Walla, Washington to Wall Street, New York City. I'm Eirik Gislason, associate broker and team leader of the Excelsior team at Brown Harris Stevens, master certified negotiation expert and instructor, founder of Archway Partners Coaching, and your host of Shear Line Negotiation Mastery, a podcast bound and determined to restore and reclaim the good name of negotiation and unlock the door to value creation, win-win solutions, and the true power of collaboration and integrative negotiations. Now, Deepak Malhotra and Max Bazerman, the authors of the incredible book, Negotiation Genius, write, "Negotiation is an information game. Those who know how to obtain information perform better than those who stick with what they know." Now, that single line cuts straight through centuries of negotiation theory. Strategies, tactics, scaffolding, framework, timing, and power balance. As complex and layered as the craft is, Malhotra and Bazerman give us the foundation every negotiator needs to gain an edge. Information is power. In every negotiation, whether you're sitting across from a client, a co-broker, a buyer, or a seller, power balance tips to the person who has the best intel, the person who knows the most. But here's the trap. Too often, we walk into negotiations focused on convincing rather than learning. We show up ready to defend our position, make our case, to take a stand. But the real leverage, it's not in what you say or the rigidity of your position. It's in what you discover and uncover. It's in your ability to listen, to ask, to test for understanding, and use that information to put a frame around the other side's interests. Curiosity is the gateway to influence, and strategic questioning is what separates the negotiators who wing it from the ones who consistently create more value, build stronger relationships, and develop deals that close. So today, we're unpacking the power of ceaseless curiosity, how asking better questions leads to better answers, sharper intel, and ultimately better outcomes at the table. And to help us explore this, I'm joined by Teresa Stephenson, president of Platinum Properties, an industry leader who has built her business and reputation on mastering the art of gathering information, leading with curiosity, and guiding agents with clarity and confidence. Now, as I mentioned, Teresa runs Platinum Properties in New York City and has spent more than a decade helping agents thrive by building the right systems and strategies. With deep knowledge of New York City and a voice at Zillow's National Premier Agent Advisory Board, she bridges local expertise with national perspective. Known for her keen insights and tactical tips, which she shares on her weekly newsletter, From the Desk of, Teresa draws on her unique background as an actress and corporate trainer to bring fresh, compelling perspectives to our industry. So welcome, Teresa, to Shear Line Negotiation Mastery. I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks, Eric.
Welcome. Now, today is Back to School Day. We're going to be releasing this a week from Back to School Day, but it is today Back to School Day. Now, I know you have a younger child, not yet going into kindergarten and above, but how did Back to School go for you and your family?
Well, he's not exactly starting school today, but today was his first day, his first full day of daycare. We've been easing him in, and I think of myself as a pretty tough cookie in general, and I was just a mess this morning, but he's enjoying it and having a good time.
I remember those days well, but believe me, it gets better and better and better in every single way as it goes on. My 12, almost 13-year-old and 10-year-old, they started off the same way. You know, it's hard at the beginning, but they loved getting back to school today, so it's a lot of fun. It gets really, really fun.
I'm excited for him to have all those kids to play with. So I think he's going to really enjoy that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we're going to dive right in, and we're going to talk about ceaseless curiosity and gaining intel, gathering information. So there's a phrase that I love to use, and it's ceaseless curiosity. So what does that mean to you as an industry leader and as an executive at Platinum Properties?
I think ceaseless curiosity is about never assuming that you have the whole picture, never assuming that you have all of the facts, and not just, whether it's with, whether you're working on a deal and it's the other agent or their client or If I'm talking to an agent in my office, right, and trying to get to the bottom of what's going to motivate them or how I can help them get out of a rut, just really, again, in regard to the market, you don't know what's happening with that agent. You don't know what's happening with their client, and circumstances change. So maybe you think maybe you do know a lot right at the beginning, and maybe halfway through the deal, things start to go a little bit sideways, right? Like just never assuming that you know everything that's going on. There's always room for questioning and for listening more than you talk.
I love that. And that is so true because we have, especially if you're an executive working with agents or training or coaching your agents or an agent working with a client, we oftentimes feel like we've been there before. We feel like we've been in this situation, and we start filling in the gaps or making those assumptions as though this circumstance is the same as the last one. And we know that by seeing all of these deals come to fruition or fall apart, that it's not always the same. There's differences with every deal and every agent depending on the circumstances. So I love that. So where do you think most real estate professionals go wrong when it comes to gathering information in a negotiation, when it comes to talking to their clients?
I think we rush. We want to get the deal done. We want to move on to the next step. We're all really, really, really busy. But I think the big mistake is if you don't take the time in the beginning, you'll pay for it later. We come in, we think we have all the facts. Here's the offer. Here's why it makes sense. Your turn.
Yeah.
And I just think when you skip the information gathering phase, you miss a lot of opportunities that can both benefit your client and make sure the deal closes faster. So I think we just really rush and don't take our time. We ask surface level questions that very often get us answers that are the headline, but not the full story.
Yeah. Yeah. That idea that somehow we just take that surface level answer and move on to the next thing. Go, okay, we take it as gospel or we take it as truth, and we don't peel back the layers to see what's actually beneath. And as we know, a lot of our agents, a lot of our clients, they take stands. They're guarding their own interests, and sometimes they don't tell us the truth right away in an effort to guard their own self-interest, which is natural.
Absolutely. Well, and I think you make a really good point because it's not just about when you're ready to make an offer and the other side, right? The information gathering starts with your own client.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't always really know. They haven't prepared a full summary of every concern they could possibly have. Right. Yeah. Part of your job is to draw it out and help them understand for themselves what their priorities are.
Yeah.
And you can say, what are your priorities? So maybe the first question does give you some very tactical information.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, this is your timeline. Okay, this is the price you want, and here's why. But it still doesn't give you the full picture, right? So you've really got to use some of those open-ended questions that really help shift the overall perspective and aren't just about getting, yes and no answers to your first 5 information gathering questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that those yes or no questions, and I love how you brought in open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions, because there is a time and a place for each of them. But oftentimes we as people, not just agents or salespeople or executives or trainers, coaches, we use a closed-ended question because we're subconsciously trying to guard the other person from saying something they don't want to say or saying too much. And we give them that out by just giving them a yes or no to answer. And we psychologically are doing that to the detriment of ourselves and our clients when we do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just another example of taking the short, easiest route, right? So really, again, putting more time in on the front end is going to save you a lot of time, especially if you're talking about your own client, if they happen to be a buyer, what the properties you're going to show, why, and really understanding their wants. I mean, talk about a huge time saver.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about balancing your questions with listening, with opening your ears and listening to your client, gathering that information by just allowing them to talk, and making sure that we're not just thinking about the next thing that we want to say. Mm-hmm. So how do you coach your agents to listen professionally?
It's a discipline, right? I mean, I think for some people, Eric, I think you're so good at listening. I feel like some of us are more talented at it than others. You know me pretty well. I'm definitely a driver, like go, what's the next thing? Yeah. So I think it's important to adopt it and practice it, not just in negotiations, but in life. I also think tactically, one thing you can do that really helps, that helps me, is to take notes. Mm. Certainly on the phone, but even in person. And for a couple of reasons, I don't necessarily even need the notes. Right. I have a pretty good memory. But if I'm stopping to actually write down the answers, I can't focus on what I'm saying next, right? I have to listen to what they're saying, take it in. Great. And I think if you're in front of somebody, it's a visual cue of, I am paying attention to you. Yeah. This is really important. I need to make sure that I don't forget what you're saying, and especially if I'm asking really questions that are like, what is very important to you? What's your vision? Yes. What does success look like for you in the future? What are your priorities in life, in your home, in this chapter of your life? If you can do anything to broadcast to them, like, what you're saying really matters to me, I think that's an added bonus of taking a note in front of somebody. That's
amazing advice. And that also lends to that idea that when we are having an important conversation with people, if they can see us, whether we're on a Zoom meeting mm-hmm. or in person, but something that elevates beyond just being on the phone or writing a text or email, when they can see that you are gathering information, that you're taking mm-hmm. in what they're saying, and visually see that you are actively listening to them by taking down those notes, that's something you can't do in a text, you can't do in an email, and you can't do over the phone. So I love that.
I agree completely. I'm actually one of our sales managers really started pushing this idea of the buyer consult over mm-hmm. Zoom when somebody wasn't available to meet in person. And it's been wildly successful.
Oh, that's great.
And I think it's a really, it's not a total replacement for being in person. I don't think anything is, but our world is so fast-paced. You can't always do that. Yeah. But if you say to your client, something I like to do with all of my clients is have a buyer consultation before the viewing. I want to be respectful of your time. Could we get all of the stakeholders onto a Zoom call? And then you also learn who all the stakeholders are.
Right.
Which you might not know if you just say, it was so nice to be introduced to you. That's what you want? Okay, let's go see some properties.
Yeah. Right? And you don't know what the interests are of the other people that have an interest in that deal, whether it's a co-purchaser, a parent, a roommate, or whatever the situation mm-hmm. is. You're speaking with the one person who has chosen to be out front, but oftentimes the interests of the other people are stronger. They're more rigid than the person who's willing to collaborate, who's willing to be flexible on this or that, criterion in their parameters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned you're a driver, and we've had this conversation before. I'm a big fan of understanding the decision makers, and that idea of really knowing who you're talking to and understanding how they want to be communicated with and how to influence them based on the behaviors that you see and what type of a person they are. And are they an assertive driver? Are they a collaborative feeler? Are they an expressive humanist or an analytic thinker? And so when you are listening and taking notes, one of the things that you are doing as a skilled negotiator is understanding who that person is, sizing up the person on the other side of the table to understand what is going to be the best way to communicate with them and to influence them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. All right, so we're going to take our first break, and we'll be right back with Teresa.
I'm Brian Scott Cohen, one of the top loan originators in the country, and the #1 mortgage originator at Guaranteed Rate Infinity. Guaranteed Rate Infinity arguably has the most advanced tech in the industry. Our completely digital loan process makes it easy and efficient for homeowners, from a 15-minute pre-approval to the digital application and through closing. My team and I would love to help you get into the home of your dreams.
what do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
And we are back. So to pivot a little bit, Teresa, a lot of negotiators, as we talked about, show up ready to defend their own position rather than discovering the other side's position. So why do you think ego gets in the way as negotiators?
I think a lot of our agents, especially our most talented agents, do a whole lot of work and a lot of research, right, to back up their offer. And so I think the ego can get really hung up on being right after all of that, right? A lot of agents are really high performers. They're used to being right and being rewarded for being right. And the problem is, at the end of the day, you're not presenting a court case.
Right.
There's not an impartial judge
Exactly.
that's going to decide who's right here.
Yeah.
So certainly you want to present your case in the sense of having all the data and the information. That's all really, really important. And you need that kind of competence to be confident.
Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, there's another person on the other side of the table who has to kind of come your way to some degree for this deal to go through. Right.
Yeah.
So I think if ego is about being right, curiosity is more about understanding. Right? It's a different goal. If I'm leading with my ego, I want to be right. If I'm leading with curiosity, I want to understand. And if I can understand both the circumstances for everybody involved and also, like you were saying earlier, the personalities, certainly how do you like to be dealt with? But I remember also one of the things is when I was a new agent, I took the negotiation course at Rebney. And one of the things that stuck out for me was this idea of the really assertive negotiator. You can correct me if my title's wrong, but that was one of the styles. Competitive, the competitive negotiator, right? The one who has to feel like they're winning and you're losing, right? They don't feel like they're winning unless they feel like you're losing.
Yeah.
And that was so insightful for me because I was like, if I can push my ego to the side here and lose my need to be right in everyone's eyes, I can play into that.
Yeah.
If I know that you need to feel like I'm losing, I can play that part. I went to drama school, right?
Exactly. That's where our acting careers kind of come.
You
come
might
back
know
to
that
help us.
your sellers are very flexible about move and date, and that it doesn't bother them at all. But if you've got somebody coming at you who's being really aggressive, and you've got to find a way to make this deal work with, so that everybody wins, you can say, well, I don't know, Jim. You're driving a really hard bargain.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to have to talk to my seller. Well, you really dragged me over the coals for this one. And then at the end of the day, his client gets what they want. Your client gets what you want. And you didn't let that competitive negotiator personality get in the way of closing a deal.
Absolutely. And if you do have that competitive negotiator on the other side, oftentimes they're more interested in the value that they're getting than the value their client is getting. And they're very transparent about what they want. And the more transparent they are about what they want, the more I can find ways to exchange things of lesser value to me, give them the little nugget of the thing that they're screaming about or they keep on repeating while I'm taking all of the other value in that transaction and just kind of end around and getting more from my client than I would if I were dealing with a collaborative negotiator.
And that's what happens, right? When you put your ego to the side, you lead with curiosity, you gather all of that information, it leads to more leverage.
Yeah. And I love how you kind of put the on two sides of the coin, ego on one side and curiosity on the other. Because if you really are leading with curiosity, if you're really interested in what the other person has to say and gathering the information that they're willing to give you, then you almost have to put the ego aside. It really becomes something that, like, either you're asking the question because you already know how you're going to respond, and then you're really giving up the value that curiosity gives you. But if you're really being curious, you almost by default have to let go of that ego and just see what happens and gather what you can, understand what's coming at you, and then you can reframe and come up with a solution or some sort of a packaging of the negotiation that is going to benefit your client better than if you were just waiting to respond with what you knew you were going to say.
Well, it's no longer about you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the key. It's not about, am I right? Am I going to win? If you're really going into it as a problem solver, which, let's face it, that's a huge part of what we do, right? Every time a problem comes up, whether it's with me or an agent, I try to remind myself, that's why we all have jobs.
That's right. That's
if these were all easy and went smoothly and it was not a big deal, like there would be no need for us, you know? So if you're really there to, like, what is the optimal, it's almost a game, right? A high stakes game. What is the optimal scenario for how this deal could go?
Yeah.
And it's my job to figure out all of the parts, all of the pieces. There are all these clues everywhere. If I can just uncover all of that, I can come up with, like, the best scenario for how this is going to go. And then it's about the deal, about the win-win, about your clients, about the other side in a way, right? Because knowing what they have is what's going to help you win with your client. And then you're not so worried about you. Winning is what feels good. And what's exciting, first of all, for all of us, is getting the deal done. It's no fun if the deal doesn't get done. So if you take this approach, the deal's much more likely to get done.
Yeah.
And then, it's just all a lot more pleasant.
It is. And I can see your passion for it, which it's that idea of seeing the pieces of the puzzle and just, almost like a beautiful mind, seeing them pop out at you and then putting those pieces of the puzzle in place and knowing that the construction of that puzzle is what your client was hoping for, was looking for. And the only reason that you got there was because you understood the pieces you were dealing with in order to construct it, rather than having, pieces strewn about the table and not even knowing where to start. And that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So along those lines of ego, so how do you coach your team to stay curious even when they are feeling defensive? You mentioned going into it, they've done a lot of research, they know what they're saying, they know what they've done the comps, they know the valuation. When they're feeling defensive or undervalued or challenged in negotiation, how do you coach them to stay curious in that circumstance?
I think the important thing for agents to understand is why it's so important not to get defensive, right? And we've talked about this before, but it's because you lose your leverage.
Yeah.
If you get defensive, you're not going to find out any more information. You're not going to be calm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which we all know that we operate better when we have a cool head. And again, I think if you're approaching this as a game, when somebody comes at you with something that doesn't feel right, that's kind of a signal to you of, wait a minute, there are two ways I could go right now. I could get really defensive and try and prove my case. Let me remind myself I'm not in court.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I can get some really tactical, reach into my toolkit and get kind of tactical here. What are the questions that I go to? You have to be prepared, right? Like, what are the questions I go to when I'm feeling defensive, right? Yeah. Is it, that's a surprising thing for me to hear. Can you tell me more about that? Mm-hmm. Or it sounds like you're really upset about that. It sounds like you're frustrated. Yeah. Can you tell me more about that? And then not only do you stay cool and gather more information, but you're also giving people an opportunity to vent. Yeah. Which a lot of times people just want to be heard.
Yeah, that accusation audit of this, it seems like, this is what it seems like to me. And that you give them the opportunity to either say, no, that's not what I'm feeling right now, or to confirm what your hypothesis is, or what your assumption is, or your claim.
Yeah, even something as simple as pricing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You've done all the research. You're probably right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just leave that at the door. So tell me more about that. Why do you think it's worth so much?
Yeah.
Why is it so important to you to get that price? Right? Like they're like, tell me more about that. You know, I want to hear your perspective on this. And there are a million different reasons. And we don't know what they are. And to assume that you already know the answer to that is costly.
Yeah. And whether they end up, let's say it's $1 million property and they want to price it at 1.2, to your point, oftentimes what the person on the other side of the table, whether it's our client or our counterpart in a negotiation, what they want to know is that you know that it's worth 1.2 to them. Ultimately, if you can have an honest conversation with your client, you can talk about where the market is and how we're going to get to the best possible price for them. But if you ignore the fact that they have a reason to believe that their property is worth what they think it's worth, that it's, I had Jacob Feldman on the podcast twice now, and he talks about the principle of charity. What they are saying to you, they believe is true. And if we take that assumption or take that as fact, that I believe what you're saying you think is true. That's powerful. And now we can have a conversation about what gets us to the best possible price. But the person on the other side of the table understands that you get it. You know that there's something else at play that makes them believe that their $1 million property is actually worth 20% more than the market is telling them it is worth. And we're going to sell the property one way or the other, but understanding why that person believes what they believe and trusting that what they're saying to you comes from some sort of a place of belief from their side is how we get to the assumptions and then get to a new claim or get to a new solution to the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think people want to feel heard. I think it's a basic human desire, and to feel respected.
Yeah.
Right? And I think everything that you just mentioned helps accomplish that goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and negotiators often confuse the assertiveness with certainty. Like if I just say it loud enough, the other side will believe it. Or if I just claim that it is true, the other side will believe it. And they believe that having all of the answers is leverage or is strength. How can we coach agents to reframe that so they know that certainty or that bluster is not where they derive their strength?
I think, to me, assertiveness is about clarity and presence. I think, the worst advice you can give is be really aggressive. That shows how strong you are. Then it's all about you. You're leaving everybody off the table. And frankly, people don't want to work with that person. You're building a career here, right? Yeah. This isn't about one deal. Maybe you'll win that deal. I don't know. But probably not as much as you think you are, depending on who's on the other side. But maybe you do. But you're building a career, right? I think real assertiveness that comes from confidence and competence is about clarity and presence. And that comes from everything we've been talking about. Yeah.
Confidence and competence. That combination of those two things, being able to know what you're talking about and then being able to believe, to have the self-confidence, the self-worth, the self-efficacy to say, I am worth it, I know what I'm worth, and the things that I am saying, I can stand behind. And that's the combination of confidence and competence together is what makes an incredible agent.
Well, and if you're really confident, you are not afraid to be a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? And to say, because it's really hard to be on the other side of the table and hear the person say, I know what I'm saying is right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, where do we go from here?
Right.
Because you have no interest in hearing what I have to say or my perspective. Let me figure out how I'm going to navigate this. Versus, here's what I understand to be true. Here are the things I've learned, and as a result, here are the things that I understand to be true based on that learning, right? And again, that goes back to this idea of clarity and presence. You're being calm. You're taking into consideration what other people are saying, and because you know your stuff and you know you're good at this, you don't have anything to prove.
That's right.
Right? To me, when somebody comes at me really aggressive and strong, they've got something they want to prove real bad.
Yeah.
And so I'm just taking that into consideration as part of their psychology that I'm going to deal with. Yeah. I'm not assuming that what they're saying is true.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Yeah, it's that mode of convincing you and using language that shows that they're just trying to convince you rather than to have a conversation where you both can be heard and then come to some agreement. Yeah, I love that. All right, so we are going to take another break and we'll be right back.
Ultimate Diamond is New York City's most established family-owned jeweler. With over 65 years of experience, Ultimate is renowned for its exceptional, custom-crafted diamond jewelry, its bespoke engagement ring designs, and its ability to source rare, distinguished timepieces. Ultimate has built a legacy of timeless craftsmanship and discretion, making it a trusted name among those who value refined luxury. Learn more at ultimatediamond.com.
Hi, I'm Dylan Pachulik, CEO of XL Real Property Management, New York's most trusted name in luxury property management since 2012. We specialize in managing individual apartments, townhouses, and rental buildings held by absentee owners. We maintain our properties with the highest standards of quality and service so that owners can choose a hassle-free approach to real estate investing. Rented or owner-occupied, we handle it all. For more information, contact us at xl-rpm.com.
Hi, I'm Evan Greenberg with Langdon Title. I specialize in title insurance across New York, helping real estate attorneys, agents, and brokers close with confidence. I solve problems fast and keep your deals moving. Contact me anytime.
All right, we are back with Teresa Stephenson. So, my next question is how does ceaseless curiosity change the way that you and your team approach onboarding or the initial listing presentation?
I think it's useful for both, but when I have like a vivid image in my head of two different agents pitching a listing, and I think this happens at every level, right? I don't think these are rookie mistakes.
Okay.
There's the agent who goes in, especially a particularly successful, experienced agent who goes in there and says, I've done X number in sales. I've done these listings. I do this. I, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why you should use me.
Right.
Right? And then there's leading with ceaseless curiosity. I mean, of course, have that in all of your marketing materials. Maybe at the end you throw some of that in so that they know who they're dealing with. You've earned that, and they should know. The experience and knowledge that you have, but you've got to lead with you.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you want? Where, or maybe even if you've done your research before you come in, hey, I know this about you, or I know about your art collection. Look at that. It's amazing. Do you know what's really cool about this building?
Yeah.
That I love? Man, it looks like you've been here for 20 years. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right? Let's talk about you and then having those questions about what's important to you. What do you, beyond the transaction, what does success look like for you?
Yeah.
Right? Is there anything beyond the transaction you can visualize, right? Of what success would look like for you, and just really making it about them. And then you can tailor. It's not just about nice and making somebody feel good, right?
Yeah.
Then you got to pitch what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right? You walked in thinking price was most important because that's what we all walk in thinking, right? And they said, I don't care. I want this sold in 3 weeks.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Or, I just really don't want to have a lot of people come through. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I really don't want a ton of people coming through my apartment, the art collection, the whatever. But whatever that information is, you're going to quickly, you just said you were going to get so many people through the apartment.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Maybe that's not.
We're going to have the biggest open house ever. There's going to be 50
amazing
people here on
broker
Sunday.
preview, right?
Exactly.
Like with all the top agents in New
Red
York
wine
City.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. So, but just, I think that's really, and I do think that that's a mistake made at every level, is making it all, is that it's very easy to go in bragging and talking about what you're going to do. We feel this onus to do that, to prove ourselves, especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Right? Like with everything coming at us about what value we offer, and, we kind of feel like we have to prove ourselves. And I think that's really understandable. But at the end of the day, it should also be kind of a relief.
Yeah.
You don't have to go in there and prove yourself. Yes, be confident, be prepared. But at the end of the day, it should be a really nice relief to make it about the client.
I cannot agree with you more. And as you know, you're speaking my language because I'm a huge proponent of understanding the difference between an elevator pitch and a value proposition. And one is about why my product or service is the right thing for you to choose. So it is about me and us and we, as opposed to a value proposition, with the whole point is to find a way to tailor that value proposition exactly to the person across the table from you. And the only way that you can do that is by knowing who that person is, uncovering what their actual problem is and how they want to solve it, so that then you can say, all right, given who you are, given what you want, these are the benefits that I can offer in order to help solve your problem in the most efficient, most effective way. And that is a completely different thing than walking in, or that image we have of an elevator pitch of trying to convince someone in 30 seconds why I'm better than my competition.
Yeah, there's no shortcuts, and hopefully it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Right? Hopefully you have some curiosity about your client and what's important to them, and that can make the job a lot more fun.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that too, how you've brought in a few different times this idea of the more we can appeal to someone's self-interest, because we all act in our own self-interest. That is like the granddaddy of all the persuasion principles, right? So the more we can appeal to someone else's self-interest and say, this is why this is good for you. This is why this would help you. Competitive negotiators respond very, very well to self-interest. So by appealing to them and saying, hey, this is something that you haven't tried. This is something that you might want to try. And here's why, because you will end up sleeping better at night, enjoying your job more, being more successful on a regular basis. Like, there are all of the benefits that you will receive from doing something a different way. And it's not like I'm trying to convince you to do it because that's our company policy or because that's the way that agent does it. It will help you and affect you in a way that's positive. And people respond to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Before we get to the lightning round, I have one more question for you. For agents looking to instantly improve, because I like to say all of these negotiation strategies and tactics, they are implementable immediately. So for those looking to instantly improve their relationships, what's one single question that they should start asking every client in every client meeting starting tomorrow or today?
I think very simply, I think I said this before, beyond the transaction, what does success look like for you? Yeah. And I think there's also baby steps for getting to this, right? Like, in terms of just as you go through your day-to-day, you might not be seeing a client today, right? But you might bump into somebody and say, how you doing? Good, good, good. Really? Are things going well? Tell me what's going on in your life, right? Yeah. Or, I'm fine. Fine. Right? Let's just like dig a little deeper. Yeah. Let's get a little bit more, with some open questions. And I think if you kind of can test the waters in non-pressure situations, and just to kind of train yourself to have a little more curiosity about people in general. Yeah. You can get comfortable with that and then take it into the professional world. Well, you came full circle back to being curious, and I love that. So it's all about curiosity, isn't it? And gathering that information from that curiosity. So I'm going to go into the lightning round. This is just some quick questions to get a little bit more insight into you, beyond just the topic that we're talking about today, but just to learn a little bit more about you. But before I first ask you a lightning round question, I have to cue the music. All right, so we ready.
Yeah, you ready? Okay.
Yes, thank you for that.
All right, so what is one negotiation superpower you wish more agents had? Whether they're your agents at Platinum Properties or agents in general, what's one superpower you wish more agents had? Listening without interrupting. That's perfect. That's all you need. That's it. That's all you need. And sometimes a little silence goes a long, long way. Yeah, wonderful. I love it. All right. Now, I know you went to Vanderbilt undergrad, yes, right? I did. And Rutgers for graduate school. I did. So if you had to choose Commodore or Scarlet Knight?
So I was much more social at Vanderbilt. That was a lot more, there was a lot more fun and parties and that sort of thing. So in terms of actually being a Commodore and going to football games and things, I'd say I'm more of a Commodore.
Okay.
In terms of just my life, I am so grateful for my 3 years of MFA training and drama schools, 3 of the most fulfilling years of my life, and
Oh, that's awesome.
really helped shape what I feel like are some of the best parts of myself today. So I just feel really privileged and lucky to have been able to spend 3 years pursuing my art.
Oh, okay, so this is off script a little bit, but what was your favorite part? What was your favorite part of that MFA program?
Oh, man. I mean, I think it's partly, we keep talking about curiosity. My most impactful teacher that I had there would always say, replace your certainty with wonder.
I'm stealing that.
Steal it. I think it was actually Meisner, but who's
definitely steal.
was a very prominent acting teacher of his time. But I think that, was really drilled into me and has made me a better human being.
Replace certainty with wonder.
Yeah.
Love that. Oh, that's
I think
great.
the world would be a better place if we all did a little more of that.
100% agree. All right. So next question. One book, podcast, or resource that has changed how you think about influence and persuasion.
Never split the difference, right? It's a one everybody knows about, but I mean, that guy was.
They should read it.
If they don't, they should read it. I mean, he was negotiating for people's lives.
Yeah.
I do remind myself when I start to get stressed out that no apartments are dying, right?
Yeah.
Like it's okay.
Exactly.
Like we're not in an emergency room.
Sometimes
we're not
I
in
feel
a
like they're
hostage
dying, but
negotiation. Yeah, but he was in hostage negotiations, I think it's an incredible title. In that scenario, you can't split the difference.
Yeah.
But I just love, just like you do, he really approaches the coaching and teaching around negotiating on psychology and empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
And if a hostage negotiation isn't a place where you're definitely not going to rely on soft skills if they don't matter, right? They're not soft skills. They are absolutely essential skills.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And Chris Voss, I mean, the kind of applicable to our conversation today, his company is called the Black Swan Group. And the amazing metaphor there and the imagery behind the Black Swan Group is that at one point, everybody in the world thought that swans were white. There were only white swans. And then somewhere, I think it was in New Zealand at some point, someone discovered a black swan. It had every other attribute that a swan had, except it was black. And it's that idea of uncovering the thing that we don't know. And when we do that, and that comes from strategic questioning, that comes from strategic empathy that he talks about, and being curious, when we uncover that black swan, the power in a negotiation changes in an instant. And I love that metaphor of his company.
It's a wonderful metaphor. I had forgotten about it until you said it. It's so true.
Yeah,
I think the other good thing about the book, too, is that he just gives so much practical, tactical advice.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening to this podcast and they're like, yeah, but like, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Like, give me one question, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do I really do this? If you're somebody who has 1,000 more questions, like I do, he really answers all the questions. And he's like, if you want this, say this. If you want that, say that.
Yeah.
And you can you might not absorb it all in the first read. I think it's the kind of thing that's really good to go back and revisit, but it gives you so many practical, tactical things that you can do. So I highly recommend for anybody who wants to understand all of this more.
Love it. It's amazing. So off the topic of negotiation in real estate, before your incredible career in real estate, you had a career as an actress. So looking back, do you have a favorite role?
It's funny how this all keeps coming back together, and it really wasn't even planned. So I got to play the part of Amelia in a play called Desdemona by Paula Vogel. And talk about opening perspectives, right? Like different perspectives. We've all heard of the play, or most of us have heard of the play Othello by William Shakespeare. What Paula Vogel did was she said, okay, so we all know how Othello feels, right? Which is important. What about Desdemona? Right? What's her story? She gets killed, right? Let's find out about what she thinks. And so it's the retelling from the perspective of three of the women in Shakespeare's Othello. And it's about three women, and there's just this beautiful sisterhood amongst them as they navigate all of the events of the play. And it was really a beautiful experience. And it was one time when I was hanging up my costume for the last time, I got a little teary-eyed and was sad that I was leaving her behind, and just so grateful for having had the experience. So, yeah.
That's a phenomenal answer. I love that.
Thanks.
I love that. Oh, and it is so amazing to see the perspective of Desdemona as opposed to what we know from Othello. And I love that. It's just a great play. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. All right. So last question is, where can our audience find you, Teresa? Tell us where we can learn more about you and subscribe to your newsletter, everything.
Great. So I would love for you to find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active when it comes to social media. If you want to just send me a DM there, if you want to be added to the From the Desk of newsletter that goes out every week. And I'm kind of an IRL girl, We're down at 100 Wall Street. If you're going to be in the neighborhood, let us know. I'm a big fan of meeting in person.
That's great. And if you are not subscribed to From the Desk of, it's an amazing short read. It's gotten a lot of traction in our industry, and you cover a lot of different topics, but for agents to understand, there's mindset stuff there, there's preparation, there's a lot of guiding people through what might be a difficult market, what might be in a market where they're finding a lot of success. But you give a lot of great insight in a very short amount of time in your newsletter. I love it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Well, now I want to give the takeaways. So thank you again. I'm so glad that we finally made this happen. And I'm going to give a few takeaways from today's episode. So if negotiation is an information game, and Malhotra and Bazerman are right, which in my experience they are, then curiosity isn't just helpful, it's everything. Today's conversation with Teresa reminds us that the best negotiators don't win because they talk the loudest or defend their position with the toughest stand or the most bluster. They win because they learn more, faster, and incorporate what they learn into value for their side of the deal. And to do that, I offer 3 big takeaways you can all implement today. Number 1, lead with ceaseless curiosity. The more curious you are, the more you uncover. Don't settle for the first answer or the surface response, as we talked about. Dig deeper. Ask, then ask again in a different way. Then take what you've learned and test for understanding. Do it in the name of curiosity. The goal isn't to confirm your assumptions, it's to discover what's beneath the surface and confirm what's at the core of the other party's interests. Number 2, master the art of strategic questioning. Not all questions are created equal. Great negotiators don't just wing it. They sequence their questions intentionally. They use open and closed-ended questions, as we talked about. They focus on what and how questions to elicit longer responses, or yes or no questions to gain compliance. And they keep peeling back the layers until we understand our client or our counterpart and their true interests. And number 3, check your ego at the door. Ego blocks information. The moment you need to be right, you stop listening. And when you stop listening, you lose the leverage of real information and good data. Stay open, curious, and flexible, because that gives you more power to adapt, to read, and to strategize in the moment. So that's Shear Line for today, everyone. As a reminder, you can support this show by following us, subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just go to getmorenetwork.com, and there you can check out all of the amazing shows on the More Network, including past episodes of Shear Line, You can find me all over Instagram at archway.partners, as well as on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Eirik the Expert. You can contact the Excelsior team at Brown Harris Stevens by going to bhsusa.com, and you can connect with my company, Archway Partners Coaching, by visiting archwaypartnersinc.com, where you can find out more about our incredible new Mighty Network community, where we have weekly small group coachings and monthly Q&A opportunities, and a whole host of training and coaching modules, motivational, inspirational content, negotiation strategies, and so much more right at your fingertips. So remember, everyone, there's a key for every lock, but it's the right combination of grooves, cuts, and teeth that lift the pins and create the shear line. Until next time, keep turning curiosity into connection, mystery into mastery, and keep unlocking what's possible. We'll see you next time, everybody.